The first time I heard the warning, "Never whistle in the Appalachian woods," I laughed. It sounded like one of those old mountain superstitions, like tossing salt over your shoulder or hanging horseshoes for luck. But when my cousin Sarah whispered it with a trembling voice the night before we left for our hiking trip, something about the way her eyes darted toward the black tree line behind her house scratched a cold line down my spine. I should have listened. It started as a simple trip. I needed to clear my head, get away from screens and work and people. The Appalachian Mountains were quiet, beautiful, untouched in a way the world rarely was anymore. My plan was to hike 3 days into the forest, camp near an old fire tower, and come back renewed. But the forest had its own plans for me. Sarah pulled me aside before I left. "If you hear whistling," she said, gripping my wrist, "don't whistle back. And don't look for whoever's doing it." I smiled. "Are we talking ghosts? Spirits? Hill folk?" She didn't smile back. Something in those woods answers. Something that isn't human. I brushed her off because of course I did. People say weird things about the mountains all the time. The Appalachians are thousands of years old, older than almost any other range on Earth. Age breeds stories, legends, warnings, superstitions. But it also breeds things we don't understand. The first day of hiking was perfect. Crisp air, golden leaves rustling overhead, the smell of pine and cold mountain soil. The trail wound up ridges and down into valleys where fog curled around my boots. I passed no one, not even a ranger or another hiker. Total solitude. Exactly what I wanted. By the time twilight draped itself across the woods, I set up camp in a clearing beside a stream. I cooked noodles over my stove, journaled a bit, and stretched out in my tent as night swallowed the last ember of color. The deeper silence of the mountains settled in. No engines. No hums. Just wind and water. And then, a whistle. A single, clear, rising note drifting through the trees. I froze, pen still in my hand. The whistle wasn't close, it sounded maybe 50 yards away, coming from downstream. But it wasn't a bird call or wind through a hollow branch. It was intentional, human. I waited. Minutes crept by. Then another whistle came. Same tone, same melody. Like someone trying to get someone else's attention. I almost whistled back. Almost. But Sarah's voice, her fear, echoed in my mind. "Never whistle in the Appalachian woods." I sat in my tent, clutching my sleeping bag, watching the nylon walls ripple from the wind. The whistling didn't come again. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under, though my dreams were disjointed flashes of dark figures among the trees. When morning broke, everything looked normal. Almost painfully normal. Birds flitted between branches, the stream whispered as calmly as ever, and sunlight laid golden stripes across the clearing. I convinced myself I'd imagined it. People hear things in forests all the time. Acoustics play tricks. Maybe it was an echo, or some weird natural sound. I hiked on. As I moved deeper into the mountains, I noticed something strange. No animals. Not a squirrel. Not a deer. Not even birds once I walked far enough from camp. It was as if the forest had emptied itself before I arrived. By late afternoon on the second day, the trees grew denser, older. Bark thick with moss, trunks twisted like ancient bones. The path faded until I wasn't sure whether I was still on it. My GPS flickered, then died entirely. A drained battery. Impossible, but it happened anyway. An uneasy pressure settled on my chest. And that's when I heard it again. A whistle. This time, it came from behind me. Low. Slow. Mimicking the same pattern from the night before. I sped up, pushing through vines and brush as branches scraped my arms. I didn't look back, not yet, but the forest felt like it was watching me. Like every tree held a set of eyes. Then, another whistle. Closer. I broke into a run. My boots slammed against the dirt as panic ignited in my throat. Someone was following me. Matching my direction. Matching my pace. Closer with every loop of that eerie, identical whistle. I didn't stop until I burst into a clearing I hadn't expected. The remains of an old logging camp. Long abandoned. Rusted metal. Rotten wood. A collapsed bunkhouse swallowed by vines. And absolutely silent. I was gulping air when I finally forced myself to turn around. No one stood on the trail behind me. No movement, only trees. But the feeling of being watched, studied, tightened around me like cold fingers on my spine. I stayed there until dusk, too afraid to go back into the woods. But night comes early in the Appalachians, sliding down mountainsides like a curtain. Once darkness fully settled, the clearing felt even more exposed. I set up my tent between two large boulders, hoping the rocks would make me feel less vulnerable. At around midnight, I woke to the sound of leaves crunching outside. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Circling my tent. My breath caught. I didn't unzip the door. Didn't move. Then something pressed against the tent wall. Fingers. Long, thin fingers dragging down the fabric. My entire body locked up. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would pass. That whatever it was would lose interest. After a moment that stretched forever, the pressure lifted. Silence. Then, a whistle. Right outside. So close the nylon vibrated. The same melody. The same rising note. But now it sounded wrong. Like it came from a throat unused to human sounds. Too wet. Too breathy. Like it was learning how to whistle. And then, another whistle responded. This one came from the treeline. A perfect mimic. There were two of them now. They whistled back and forth for several minutes, as if communicating. Then both fell quiet at once, abrupt, synchronized. As if they'd agreed on something. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, I left camp in seconds, packing nothing, abandoning half my gear. Every step felt like wading deeper into something ancient and hungry. I didn't know where I was going anymore, just away. But running blind in the Appalachians is dangerous. After 2 hours of scrambling through brush, I stumbled into a ravine and tore my leg open on a jagged rock. Blood soaked my sock. Pain shot up my thigh. And from somewhere in the trees above me, a whistle answered my cry. Not the whistle from before. This one was my scream, mimicked perfectly, replayed as a whistle. I scrambled up the ravine, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. My injured leg dragged behind me, slowing me. Every branch seemed to reach for me. Every shadow looked too tall, too thin. Around noon, I emerged onto an old service road. I limped along it, clinging to hope, until I heard something that shattered whatever courage I had left. Footsteps. Behind me. Slow. Heavy. Not the light tread of an animal. Followed by a whistle. Now confident. Almost cheerful. It was mocking me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I moved as fast as my injury let me. The road twisted, and around the bend, salvation appeared. An old ranger cabin. I practically threw myself at the door. It swung open, the lock broken years ago, and I tumbled inside. The cabin was dusty, filled with cobwebs and rusted tools. But it had a door. Walls. A hiding place. I crawled to a corner and pressed my back against the wall, trying to quiet my breathing. For 30 minutes, maybe longer, there was nothing. Then the footsteps arrived. Slow. Heavy. They stopped outside the door. A shadow stretched across the floorboards, thin and tall, impossibly tall, its head nearly brushing the top of the doorway. And then, the whistle. But this time, it wasn't the melody from before. It was my voice, whistling. Mimicked perfectly. Go away, I whispered, tears spilling silently down my face. Something shifted outside, as if leaning closer. The shadow distorted. And then, knuckles rapped gently on the door. 3 soft taps. Like it was asking permission to enter. I held my breath until my vision blurred. Minutes ticked by. Maybe hours. I don't know. Eventually, the shadow slid away. The footsteps faded. And the forest returned to its unnatural silence. I stayed in that cabin until dark. Then until dawn. When morning light came again, I looked outside. Tracks led from the trees straight to the cabin door. Long, narrow tracks that weren't shaped like boots, paws, or hooves. And, beside them, something whistled. Far off, as if promising it would be back. I limped out of the woods late that afternoon, stumbling onto a mountain road where a passing trucker picked me up. He stared at me as though I were a ghost. Maybe I was. I never found my way back to the campsites I'd made. Never found my missing gear. My GPS eventually turned back on once I reached town, as if something in the woods had suppressed it. When I told Sarah what happened, She didn't look surprised. They don't like to be mocked, she whispered. And whistling invites them. They think you're calling them. I asked what they were. She shook her head. No one knows. But the old people, my grandparents, their grandparents, they were terrified of the whistlers. I don't sleep well anymore. Some nights I hear whistling outside my apartment window. And last week, someone knocked on my door. 3 soft taps. I didn't open it. I won't open it. Because whatever followed me out of those mountains whistles now. And it knows my voice.